Welcome back, class. Today we're going to look at the graphing and quadratic expression or equation. Okay, now pay attention closely. You're going to notice that most of the things, the steps we're going to take are steps you know already. Toward the end, we'll add a little couple more to help you graph a quadratic expression or an equation. In other words, a quadratic function. Now, let's look at what we have here. The step to graph a quadratic function in general form. There are many forms for a quadratic expression or equation, but we're going to look at the general form where ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, ladies and gentlemen, notice again, most of these steps you already know how to do it, but pay attention carefully so you can notice the things that are new and you just do these extra steps. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us consider graphing the equation given. F of x equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. Ladies and gentlemen, to graph, the first thing we need to do is to set the function equal to 0. I ask you that when you're solving, you make sure the equation is equal to 0. So, since it is f of x equal to x squared minus 4x minus 6, what we do, it is become 0 equals to x squared minus 4x minus 6. Now, that wasn't so hard, was it? Alright, we set the equation equal to 0. Next step, we factor the equation if possible. If it's not possible to factor, ladies and gentlemen, we will use the quadratic formula. But I strongly suggest you try to factor it first. Well, given that equation that we have, we will use our method and we have x plus 1 to x minus 6. If we use the distributive property for this, we're going to get 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. So, we know how to do that already. And we know how to apply the zero product property. So, what we do, we're going to apply the zero product property for the next step, and that helps us find the zeros. And remember, zeros, roots, x-intercept, solution, they all mean the same thing. So the zeros for this particular equation or function is x equal negative 1 and x equals 3. Alright. Now, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention carefully to the next step. The next step is to find the axis of symmetry. Remember, when you were in grade school, they ask you, is this thing symmetrical? Axis of symmetry, of course, it cuts the graph in half, which means you want to see that middle point of the graph. Now, here's what we do to find the axis of symmetry. Ladies and gentlemen, we have negative b over 2a. That should sound familiar because when you're doing the quadratic formula, ladies and gentlemen, what does it start with? Negative b. And you remember it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b of the expression b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, the first part of that equation, negative b over 2a, gives us the axis of symmetry. Of course, at this point, since we're dealing with the negative b over 2a here, we need to find the a, the b, and the c of the function given. So we write it here. So we notice a equals to 2, b equals to negative 4, c equals to negative 6. So we're going to plug the b and the a in this particular formula. And we have negative times the negative 4, which is B, and 2 times 2, which is A. That gives us, well, 4 over 4. And we get 1. Now, the axis of symmetry is always on the x-axis, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see how that works when we graph it. You're going to see that. Now, step 4 is just finding the axis of symmetry. That's just finding A, B, and C. And you use that and plug it in this particular formula. That gives us the axis of symmetry. Now, what we do, step 5, we need to find f of negative b over 2a. Here's what that means. The number you get for the axis of symmetry, you go back to the function, you replace x by that number. You go back to the original function, whatever number you get for the axis of symmetry, you plug it in for x. Here's what I mean. Since the axis of symmetry we have was x equal 1, so in the original equation, what we do, we go back to where we have 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. We replace x by 1 because what we had x equal 1 for the axis of symmetry. And what we do, we get 1 squared, which is 2 times 1, which is 2. Then 4 times 1, which is 4, so it's negative 4, and negative 6. And we have 2 minus 10, which equals negative 8. That's all there is to it. Remember, the whole idea of f of negative b over 2a, please do not let that throw you off. This is just find the axis of symmetry and you take it, you plug it in for x in the function given. That's all there is to it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So I know f of negative 1, which was the axis of symmetry, that's what 1 was, equals negative 8. As a result, I have this point. You know how you have x and y? The f of x always represents y. So remember, the x we found was 1, so the y is negative 8. As a result, the point 1 comma negative 8 is the lowest point on this particular graph. This is the lowest point on this particular graph, ladies and gentlemen. So, because it's the lowest point, it is often equal to the minimum. It is the minimum, the lowest point on the graph. Ladies and gentlemen, this also 1 comma negative 8 is what we call the vertex. The vertex of the graph can either be the minimum or the maximum, but on this particular graph, it is the minimum because it's the lowest point on the graph. Okay? Now, this is what we've done so far. We found the zeros, which was negative 1 and 3. We have found the axis of symmetry that was equal to x equal 1. And the vertex is what we just talked about, which is the point, the lowest point on the graph, or this particular graph, is 1 comma negative 8. That's the vertex. What we do, ladies and gentlemen, what we do at this point, we're going to use this information to graph. So, we're going to get a coordinate plane there. Okay? Now, what you see here is the graph. What you see here is negative 1, okay? Negative 1, because it was one of the zeros. The other 0 is 3. Negative 1 and 3. Now, we're going to move to the axis of symmetry. Remember, the axis of symmetry was positive 1. We go to positive 1. We do not put a point there, but we put a nice straight line. It's like a mirror, okay? A very nice mirror. What we do, this is like anything we have on one side, we have on the other side. Anything we have on one side, we have on the other side. That's what the axis of symmetry here. Remember again, when you were in grade school, they ask you, is this figure symmetrical? You make sure you can cut it in whatever you have on one side of the line, you have on the other. That's what this axis of symmetry does. So then we plot the vertex, which is the point 1 comma negative 8. One thing you have to understand, the vertex is always on the line of symmetry. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is always on the line of symmetry. So we plot that point. It is right here, 1 comma negative 8. So basically at this point, we just connect the lines. We connect the points rather. We take the points, connect them with one line, and we would get the following. Okay? So we connect the points. We have this. More or less. This is the graph for the equation f of x equals 2x squared minus 4x minus 6. We can go ahead and extend the line a little bit. All right? This is the graph. This is how you graph. All right? You have to practice that. It is necessary to learn the steps. Ladies and gentlemen, don't tell me it too much. It is the steps you take. As you practice, you notice most of these things we do, you already know how to do. The only different things we learn today is the axis of symmetry and finding the vertex, the minimum or the lowest point, or you can call it the highest point. Depends on the graph. Now, we're going to practice this, and you are going to look at the steps. Make sure you do the IXL assignments and so on as listed on Google Classroom. And ladies and gentlemen, before we do so, let's consider the following. This is going to be nice practice for you. Let's consider these functions. F of x equals x squared minus 3x plus 2, and f of x equals negative 2x squared plus 12x plus 14, and f of x equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 6. I would like you to try to factor or go through all the steps and graph this function. I would like you to graph each function, okay? And I hope you find this feasible, and practice, and we go from there. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.